and we're here at IBMA World of Bluegrass with CJ Lewandowski of the Po Ramblin Boys, who, if you ain't ever seen them, you got to check them out because you've been for a great treat. Warning, do not ask if they're the understudies for the Cleverleys, because it'll piss them off, or at least it did a few years ago. CJ, the story of how the band came together is pretty amazing. You were working at Old Smoky Distillery, and just tell us how that all came about.
Let's see, I moved down to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, the summer of 2013, and I moved down there for a program that was being put together by the city of Gatlinburg. It was just a summer job, just 2 or 3 months. Well, when that ended, I actually found a house down there. I'd always kind of wanted to live down there, and I seen, as I was going down there over the summer, doing these shows, I could tell that there was a lot of room for music, and you know, you could make a living down there doing music at the theaters or Dollywood or even, you know, Old Smoky. And the city really supports things a lot, so there's a lot of music. So I moved down there August of 2013, and I started hanging out with a bunch of the people that was working at Old Smoky Moonshine as the house acts, and they had I think they had 4 bands at the time. So, long story short, they opened up a second location in Pigeon Forge, and so they needed to pretty much double their band size because they had 2 stages for 10 hours a day now for 7 days a week. So Matt Flake, the entertainment director, he seen me down there filling in and all that kind of stuff, and he said, "You want a band? Do you want to put together? Do you want to lead it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I would," but I said, "I don't want to. I'm not just going to hire anyone that's working down here already." I said, "I've got an idea for some guys," and so I called Josh and Jeremy, and they wanted to play music for a living, and I knew they did because we've been friends for years. We met in 2008, so we'd played a lot of music together previous to that. But August of 14 is when we officially started the Po Ramblin Boys, and Jasper was actually working in the bar at Old Smoky. So he was pouring shots for all the tourists and stuff, and we knew him previously too, not as well, but we did know him previously. And so August, that first Sunday of August in 14, we hit the stage as the Po Ramblin Boys, and it's been quite a journey ever since.
Now, I think I saw somewhere you commented that it was like having like a year and a half of on-the-job training before you went out touring.
Yeah, we had no intention whatsoever to travel, because Josh and Jeremy were playing with Tommy Brown and the County Line Grass, and I was still playing with Carl Shiflin at the time. So we had our little, you know, they weren't playing very much. They were doing 20, 25 dates a year. So we could still do both Old Smoky and we could travel on the road. So we'd get our traveling fix, because we'd all been traveling musicians before. But the whole thing with Old Smoky was we could get paid, and we could go home and we could sleep in our own bed every night. And that's a heck of a deal, and we were getting paid good. So we had no intention really to travel, but we honed a lot of things in down there, and we went down there and played music. There was no plan, there was no nothing. It was just us playing music, and as a result, we played music so much that we became tighter than most groups, and it's relevant in today too with Old Smoky. There's a lot of bands down there. Seth Mulder and Midnight Runner here, and they're a house band down there too, and you can almost tell the difference because there's a lot of practice going on down there. Try new songs on people. A lot of options you can do down there, because it's not as judged. Like you can pull out a new song, and if you mess it up, those people, some really don't. But on the flip side of that coin, you're also getting people into bluegrass music that had never heard it before. A bunch of these people. So it expanded our fan base pretty quickly, and it gave us a lot of practice. And so these house gigs, these residencies, if you will, that have been around for years, the Red Slipper Lounge and 79 Club and things like that, those are important. They've really been important. As I said yesterday in the keynote, I said I think Old Smoky is going to have a chapter in the bluegrass history book for being one of those breeding grounds for bands.
Now the outfits that you guys wear,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the old-fashioned, styling, and first question is where do you shop? Where do you get your wear?
There's a lot of places that we go. A lot of that stuff comes off online buying and stuff. Our rhinestone ties, I guess, is what we're famous for. Those are all vintage. There's no one today that makes those ties anywhere that I know of. And if you do make those ties, holler at me. But all those ties are from the 50s and 60s, most likely. So we've found them wherever we can. There's a place in Knoxville that's great called the Pioneer House. They travel all around the world pretty much, and they collect vintage Western apparel and things like that. So they'll have hats and ties for us every once in a while. And I went in there and bought 3 shirts the other day. I have an aunt that actually she's been doing embroidery work for almost 40 years, I guess, and she does a great job. So I'll buy a suit, whether it be vintage or a new one, and then I'll send it to her, and she'll put all kinds of embroidery over it and put rhinestones on it for me. So there's a lot of cool stuff that's very custom because of the people we know.
Now, when did that become the band style? Was that part of the show at Old Smoky?
No, Old Smoky was bib overalls. That's and that was a concept that I came up with when we started. Because when I was working with Carl Shiflett, I would always wear bib overalls. I just did. It's so easy to travel on a bus and just have a pair of bib overalls. You can hang them up when you're and put them back on. It's just easy, and to change into your suit clothes. You can get out of them quick, put your suit clothes on, get out of your suit clothes, put your bibs on quick, get out to the table. And so we were wearing bib overalls. I wore them every day at that time. And I had worked up a relationship with Pointer Brand overall company in Bristol, Tennessee. And I talked to the band. I said, these people want to see the hillbilly show. They want to see these mountain guys coming down and playing mountain music. That's what they want. Whether we're mountain people or not, doesn't matter, but that's what they want. We got to give them their show. So that led into everybody wearing bib overalls, and we did that we did a European tour in bib overalls in 2017, our first European tour. And that was a look, we carried that and probably until 2000, we were a showcase band here in 2017, and the awards, we were dressed up. There was a cross period, I guess, where we were still doing bibs, and I remember doing a showcase for IBMA one night. We did 2. One was in bib overalls and one was in suits. So there was a transition period, and I guess in 2018, when we started getting more bigger bookings, we dropped the bib overall thing. And Seth and Midnight Run, they do that now down at Old Smoky. They wear bib overalls, every one of them, every day.
How does your style, fashion-wise, influence the music?
Oh, I don't know. I think that's a good question. I've never been asked that. I think that when you get on stage, you have to look the part. Like you owe it to those people who paid the ticket price to give them a show, whether it be musically, singing, but that you need to look the part too. And I learned that from a bunch of old guys where I'm from in Missouri. We always had matching shirts and leather vests and things like that. We looked like a band. My thing that I always said was, if you go out in the audience and you're wearing your apparel, your stage clothes, people should recognize you that you're on the stage. Like you're a musician that's going to be there. Like you shouldn't dress like the people out there because they're paying the ticket price to see you. So at least do something. Create your own fashion, create your own style. Whether it be jeans and a shirt like this on stage, it's fine. Do whatever you want to. But we took it to a different level because we'd seen that it wasn't really happening very much. There wasn't all this flashy stuff, and realistically, we've never planned anything, to be honest. We've tried to, but and we have planned some things. But initially, in the beginning, we didn't really plan any of this stuff. The reason for the ties was 2009. We were in Saskatchewan, Canada, and there was a little booth of vintage clothing there at this festival, and they had one rhinestone, one of those ties, and that was the first one that we'd ever encountered. So I had bought it, and I bought a Western shirt, and I wore it on stage that night. And at the time, we were just wearing like regular ties, suit ties, and the guys give me a bunch of hell for it, you know. Oh, you're trying to be flashy. Well, the next tour we went out, they had found some, so we were all wearing ties. So it's musically, I don't know, you know, I think you're hearkening back to the old days of when entertainers were really wanting to entertain you. And so that's what we want to do too, whether it be musically, singing, how we work the stage show, or what we wear.
Well, and musically, you a lot of it, you know, both your original stuff and you know, the covers that you tend to pick are stuff that the covers, but not of covers of music that most people have heard. There's a lot of, you go deep into catalogs to find stuff, so it's kind of that traditional link there.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot there. I have a pretty vast record collection. I love vinyl, and I like obscure vinyl, especially in the bluegrass world. If it's, you know, our Hooley or some of the early Rebel stuff, it's really, they were doing local artists, you know, our regional labels. I've got a lot of Missouri stuff. I've got a lot of Kentucky stuff and Appalachian Mountain type stuff from these smaller labels. And even Rounder Records back in the early times was doing some crazy obscure records. They were just wanting to capture what was happening in the mountains. So I've got quite a bit of that stuff, and that's what I like to do. Is I like this. There's 12 songs on an LP most of the time, and I like to find artists that I really like that maybe some people haven't heard of ever before. And there's a generation of, I mean, my generation, and now there's a generation underneath of us, and maybe, I guess there's another one starting. But some of these people have never heard of these artists before. So when you dig through their collection and their music, you're going to find something that no one's probably ever heard of before. There's going to be, you know, the people that dig deep too. But Cliff Waldron and Charlie Moore and Earl Taylor and the Don Brown and the Ozark Mountain Trio stuff that I've carried with me forever. And there's a lot of these things where you can expose people to new music, but you're still playing old music and honoring these old guys all at the same time. And then you're educating the younger crowd with these older guys, and so they might go back and they might find a song that they like. But, you know, back to the point, there's 12 songs on an album, and one of the most notorious artists that had great material all the way across the board was George Jones. And he'd have one hit, maybe two hits, singles on a LP, but there was 10 other songs there, and they were all great. So we dig for stuff like that. We're not going to do the Rocky Tops and the ballads of Jed Clampett and all that stuff. You know, there's other songs from those artists that are just as great. They just haven't been heard very much.
Now, if we fast forward the band history past the first two albums, suddenly the Po Ramblin Boys were the Po Ramblin Boys and a gal.
That's right. Yeah.
How did Laura Arshaw, a Boston girl, come to be a Po Ramblin Boy?
Well, we met at Dr. Ralph Stanley's Memorial Bluegrass Festival. She was filling in for T.J. Lundy, Danny Paisley and the Southern Grass. And I went up, and I'm a huge Danny Paisley fan, and I love Bob too. But so I went and watched the show, and Danny is kind of like us. Like, they've been friends for so long, this band, you know. And it's a band of brothers. It used to be Mike Paisley, Danny Paisley, TJ, and Bobby Lundy. So there was these two sets of brothers that had played music together for 40 plus years. And you knew what you were going to see. And it excited me because I hadn't seen Danny in a long time. So I went up and watched the show, and first thing I seen was Laura on the fiddle. I said, I was worried where TJ was. But by the end of the set, I wasn't worrying too much because she did her part. And so I went around the backstage and I said, where'd you come from? Who are you? You know? And I've never seen you before. And she started talking and telling us, you know, her influences. I think it was being Josh at the time. Anyhow, that was in May of 17. And September of 2017, we were in New York. Hillsdale, New York, for the Old Tone Music Festival, and she was there, but she wasn't playing with anybody. She was just there. We played, and we had to do a late night, like a honky tonk thing. She got up there, did not recognize her from the previous meeting, and then we had a jam session after that. And she came to me, speaking of the obscure stuff, she came to me in the jam session and said, "Hey, CJ, do a Buzz Busby song." I'm like, how in the world do you know who? No one knows who Buzz Busby is. And she said, "It's, we met over at Ralph's." "Oh yeah, it's Laura." And so we struck it up then. We kept in contact, and she said, "Hey, I love what you do." And she said, my goal in life, well, not life, but my goal in music was I wanted to be in the next Johnson Mountain Boys. She said, "I love the Johnson Mountain Boys, and I love what they do, and I love that music. And you guys," said, "I feel you guys are it. If you ever need a fiddle player, call me." So December of 17 at Station Inn was the first show she played, and she filled in a couple times, well, quite a bit actually, over the next 2 years. And then January 2020, she joined full time. Now she was on the Toil, Tears, and Trouble project on Rounder, which was released in 2019 as the guest fiddle player, I guess you could say. And then 2018, we also put out a gospel project. So she was on that as well. We paid her to play. So she's actually been on 4 recordings out of the 5 now. So she's been there. It's been the 4 of us. Like the 4 of us guys started it, and that's pretty amazing 8 years later that it's still the 4 of us. But Laura is, she's the original fiddle player. She's actually been there for 5 years now.
How has that changed the band, both musically and life on the road, having a female?
Life on the road's not much different. That was one thing too. We were looking for a fiddle player at that time. We were looking when Laura was asking to come and play. We were trying out different ones. So that's why she didn't go to some of the shows, because we were trying out other fiddle players. And the biggest thing that people don't think about sometimes is how much time you spend on the road and how much time you're not on stage, but how much time you spend with these individuals, So the 45 or the 90 minutes or the 75 minutes on stage, there's 12 hours getting there and 12 hours back. And, if you're in a van, or we've had buses for quite a long time now, and that makes things easier. We've got our own space. We've got our own bunks. We can, split up. We can go. Some guys can go to the front room. Some can go to the back if they want some peace and privacy. Laura works on the road, so she goes in the back room and does her computer work for the college there. It didn't really change too much, because that was one thing that I was watching, was how are these fiddle players fitting musically, and then how are these fiddle players fitting personality-wise. And to be honest, Laura was the best match. Doesn't matter about the female, male-female thing. We know Tony, her husband, Tony Watt, and we all respect each other. Everything's good. She's like our sister, and we take care of her if she needs help with something, or we watch, going to truck stops and things like that. And she's got changed some things as far as rooming. She gets her own room, and the rest of us will split. So, but that if we would have had a fiddle player, we'd have to get a additional room anyhow. So it's not really the male-female thing either. She plays great music, and we love to have her there, and we'll do what we can to make it work. And that's what you should do, I think, is if it gels good and you've got some magic there, then run with it. And musically, it added so much. Some arrangements changed. We had some songs that we were already doing, and I was singing the baritone to him. Well, we thought, Laura, do you want to sing the high baritone? So some harmony structures changed to previously recorded songs or previous songs that we were doing. She also introduced a lot of new material. There was a lot of arranging on the, the Never Slow Down part, the newest one. She had a hand in a lot of the arrangements there. And she puts together the set list for us and everything. So there's been a lot of changes for the good, for sure, with bringing Laura in, and just the fiddle. Like, I love the fiddle. If I could play the fiddle, I would. but that fifth element, there's so much more that we were doing great as a four-piece. It was fine, but there was so much more depth and the backup that she does while people are singing. There was a hole there that we didn't realize because we'd never had that fiddle player before. So it added a lot. It really did. So much.
You mentioned about on the bus. You still have the vintage Silver Eagle?
We do. We actually do. Yeah. We started off with a 65 GM, 1965, and this was in 2016. So we started off with that, and then we traded and got a 1990 Eagle, which we still have. And now within the past 2 weeks, we just bought a pre-built, a 45 foot, and the only reason the Eagle is beautiful, and I love Eagles. I'm a huge Eagle fan, but it's getting harder and harder to find. It's a two-stroke diesel engine. It's getting harder and harder to find mechanics, and then if you're stranded down on the road, it's even harder to find mechanics. So we put our heads together and thought, what should we do? What could we do? And we've just now added a front of house guy. We have a full-time driver and the 5 of us in the band. So there's 7 of us. The Eagle was 40 foot long. And you think, well, that's pretty big. Well, the biggest buses there are 45 foot. And you say, well, it's only 5 foot. What difference is that? It makes a lot of difference, especially when there's 7 people. So we were expanding as the band and as the team. So we needed more room, and we needed something more updated as far as mechanics and all that stuff. So I don't necessarily know what we're going to do with the Eagle yet. We'll probably sell it, but we're going to enjoy it over this winter. I think a couple of us are going to take it on a vacation or something with our families and just enjoy it while we got it, and then put it up on the market. So
you mentioned the full-time driver, and you mentioned earlier Tommy Brown, and
Brown.
I think the first time I saw you guys, I think it was at Gettysburg, and he was driving the bus, and then also came out and sang with you, and then he also sang with Rhonda later.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yes.
Is he still driving you?
He's still driving. Yep. Tommy is. He's been the driver for us. He drove every one of those buses, and he retired from music a few years ago. I want to say he's been with us for 5 years now, probably driving. In the beginning, we didn't need him as much because we could handle it, and we weren't playing that much. But as when the schedule started getting, dates piling on top, and we've got 4 days out, we needed to do something, and he jumped right in. He volunteered. So it's cool to have Tommy out there, because that's how Jeremy and Jug cut their teeth, was with him, County Line Grass back in the day. So it kind of came full circle, I guess. Tommy retired because he just didn't. He still loved music, still does, but he was getting wore out, and we were getting successful. So it was kind of Jug and Jeremy has phased into another thing, but Tommy's still a part of the team, which is really cool. And we still get him. We get him up on stage just about every night.
And we could talk to you about your music forever, but I know you got a limited time. So just real quick, what's in the future? What do you have cooking up?
The future is it's a bunch of guesswork, I guess. Like I said, we've never planned anything, so we're thankful and we're hopeful. And I guess this week is a big week for us here at IBMA, and so that's how that goes. That could change the course of some things, I guess. But
and of course, you're talking about being nominated for the Performer of the Year.
Yeah, Entertainer of the Year.
It's quite an honor just being on a list with those guys.
Very much so, very much so. And so we have good hope. We have a lot of hopes for like original material. We're talking possibly all originals written by the band or co-written by band members. A whole album of that. We were actually talking again about what we were talking about earlier, digging up some of these old songs and doing an album of just getting back to the roots of bluegrass, like really hardcore bluegrass project. So also there's I guess I can let the cat out of the bag. We recorded a couple weeks ago with Jim Lauderdale, so they'll hopefully in the spring of 2023 we'll have a Jim Lauderdale and Po Ramblin Boys album. So got a lot of things going on. We just recorded a song with Dale Ann Bradley not too long ago, and that's going to be the next single for her. So, got a lot of plans.
I purposely did not ask you about the mandolin because we're hoping we can get you to sit down and show it to us.
Yes, we'll do it.
What is it? 2 serial numbers off of Bill's?
2 serial numbers off of Bill Monroe's. It was in Athens, Greece, and found it on a Facebook mandolin page for sale. And a lot of these vintage Gibson mandolin collectors, they thought it was a scam and thought it was fake. The guy he didn't know he didn't know anything about the bluegrass world, didn't even know what a Lloyd Loar signed F5 was, really. It was just his grandfather's mandolin that he played in. His grandfather was a mandolin orchestra conductor, and so in Greece, that is not a common mandolin. Common mandolin in Greece would be an oval hole with a flat top and a bowl back. This is, an F5 is completely different than that, and it was kind of frowned upon, supposedly, by some of the folks in the orchestra because it was too loud. But he said he kept that mandolin and played it because he could teach the whole orchestra, and they could hear him wherever they were sitting. So he kept it, and that was his mandolin for a long time. And people thought it was a scam. He tried to sell it for 2 years. The price came down. He posted it 3 times, and every time he posted it came down in $10,000 increments. And so when I got to a certain point, I said, I'm going to call this. I'm going to video message this guy. He's in Greece, and we talked, and he didn't even leave the camera frame. He just reached over, and my biggest concern was, does this man actually have a mandolin or the mandolin? Because it was just pictures, and the pictures weren't that great. The English was broken just because that's definitely a second language, and if you've ever seen Greek writing, it's completely different than English. So I think it was a Facebook translation that happened, and it was choppy sentences, and Lloyd Loar, the Lloyd was only spelled with 1 L. So there was a lot of question and concern and a lot of grief. That guy got a bunch of grief from the Loar people. But I said, well, I seen it, and I said, I would like to purchase it, but I need to lay my hands on it before I send you any kind of money. And so I said, the best thing I can think of is just go to Greece. And he said, yeah, that's fine. So about 10 days later, I went to Greece and authenticated it. It took me about a week to get the money on that end of the world. I had a wire transfer that had to come through. So it happened. It worked. It was real. And I've got it with me. I don't have it with me right now, but
we'll look forward to seeing it and
it's a great
hearing
one.
more about it.
I appreciate that.
CJ Lewandowski, the Po Ramblin Boys. If you have not seen these guys, you got to catch them because, as we've kind of alluded to before, it's not just a concert; it's a show.
That's what we want.
and thank you very much for sitting down with us today.
Yes, no problem.